At first I didn't notice what was wrong with that word. Then I noticed, but thought it was a silly mistake. Then I noticed there was no hotel name, and the word was capitalized, so it must be the name. Are you young and easygoing? Not a fan of expensive comfort and pomp, preferring low prices and a warm atmosphere? We look forward to seeing you in our cozy Bone Hotel. To celebrate our opening, all clients are getting a 50% discount until the end of winter. I searched for a hostel on Google just for a couple of days to go skiing. What Europe, when the neighboring regional center has excellent slopes of all difficulty levels practically within the city limits. My level is red slopes, by the way. I had some gear left over from last year when my father still happily sponsored all my hobbies. But this year, I was having a bit of a falling out with my parents, so I had to scrape together the funds myself. I'd spent a fortune on ski wax, so a reserved seat, instant noodles, and a hostel awaited me. Saving money was new to me, and I wanted to savor the experience to the fullest. So I carefully examined the photos on the websites. The more I looked, the more convinced I became that there wasn't much difference between the hostels. And then there's that ridiculous name. The entire website was one page, including contact information, a map, and 3 photos. A lobby with a reception desk and a bookcase filled with board games, a restroom with clearly new, though not fancy fixtures, and a bedroom with bunk beds. The beds pointed to a hostel, so I decided to call. I was intrigued not only by the half-price discount, but also by the clear-voiced woman who answered the phone. "Oh," she said. "Hello. Hello. Is that really the Bone Church you have there?" I emphasized the B. "All made of bones, like that church in the Czech Republic." Having said this, I immediately doubted that the church with the bones was really in the Czech Republic. What if it was in some other country? I'd already made a fool of myself. But she laughed sheepishly, and apparently remembering her role, began jabbering. "Good afternoon. We opened in the fall, so until the end of winter, we're offering 50% off all services. We have rooms for 2, 4, and 8 people. The Bone Church is located in a cozy residential area with a bus stop nearby. It's well insulated, so you can listen to music at night. And isn't the Bone Church in the Czech Republic?" She babbled the last sentence in a completely different tone, and I couldn't help but feel touched. Later, I found out that Bone Hotel was a hostel, not a hotel, that they actually had a skeleton in the kitchen, that the girl was a little bored because there weren't many guests at the moment, and they were leaving tomorrow and no one was there, that there were 4 of them working there, plus 2 girls and a guy, that you could walk 2 blocks from the hostel and there would be a direct bus to the ski resort, that there were irons, a microwave, a refrigerator, and kettles, and free coffee, tea leaves, and sugar, and for 100 rubles, homemade pancakes with store-bought jam. There was no online booking or prepayment system yet, but Veronica Chan swore that the bed in the double room was already mine. Come, pay, sleep, and eat pancakes. The price for the bed was 300 rubles a night and a bone. What? A bone. It was the owner's idea, Veronica explained apologetically. A bone from each guest. Well, I have a program on my computer, click the mouse, and that's it. The hostel, of course, was average, but I wanted to see this girl. I had to change trains from the train station with skis and a duffel bag, and the weather was warm and slushy. I was worried about the ride, even though the Fun Park website assured me the automatic snowmaking system was working perfectly. Overall, I wasn't feeling so great. The sign on the entrance to the apartment building was predictably black, the word Bone Hotel written in the expected pseudo-Gothic font. And then there were the stylized bones around the edges. Terrifying. The entrance was just like any other apartment building, with a small corridor running from the elevator in both directions on each floor, into which the apartment doors opened, 2 on each side. On the 3rd floor, I couldn't fit in the elevator, so I had to walk. A small hallway was blocked off by an iron door with the same Bone Hotel sign as the one downstairs. The door was open, and the sweetest creature smiled at me from the threshold, a tiny girl, no more than 5 feet tall, with big eyes and chestnut-colored ponytails. It turned out to be Veronica Chan. It immediately became clear that her shy, babbling manner extended beyond phone conversations. Blushing, she asked me to take off my shoes on the mat and offered me slippers. While I was putting my things against the wall, she ran to turn on the kettle, showed me the restroom, then settled down on a high bar stool behind her counter and, with obvious pleasure, began to play the serious receptionist. Almost sticking her tongue out with zeal, she entered my information into the form, took the money, printed a receipt on the tiny cash register, and handed out a bunch of certificates for discounts at various establishments around the city. Meanwhile, I looked around the lobby. The hostel owner obviously intended for it to have a theme, but for now, it all felt like tinsel, randomly thrown onto the walls and placed in corners. Cheap skeleton magnets on the safe where Veronica hid her money, printed photos of skulls in simple black frames, and the skeleton in the kitchen, visible from the hall, clearly used to decorate a biology room at some school. Remove all of this along with the counter, and it would look like an ordinary apartment, with some furniture removed and replaced with something slightly out of place, like this bookcase. But basically, it's all right. Nice chairs in the hall, heavy dark curtains, real wooden doors, not plywood. It's fine for 2 nights. Now pick a bone. I'd already forgotten about her program. I immediately felt uneasy, uncomfortable that she continued to maintain this silly image of the hostel. There were already too many of these bones around. The monitor Veronica turned toward me showed a human skeleton on a white background, a very detailed one. In the upper right corner was a timer counting down the seconds, below it a select bone button, and below that an empty window. I've already started the timer. Click the button or else time will run out, and whatever bone you find will be chosen. Veronica was practically jumping with excitement. I couldn't see any difference between a random choice when pressing the button and a random choice after the timer ran out. I just wanted to get this tedious game over with. Select bone. The text appeared in the window in the lower right corner of the screen. Os femoris, the femur, is the largest of the tubular bones. And then some lines of text. On the skeleton, one of the femurs was highlighted in blue. Clearly, some kind of anatomy textbook for medical students. Oh, the receptionist said respectfully. The biggest, and the last guest chose os occipitale. She immediately boasted about something incomprehensible and instantly blushed, as if she was afraid I would die of envy for the previous guest. It was time to end all this. Veronica, show me your room, okay? I'm exhausted as a dog. The fatigue was truly overwhelming at a record pace. Would you like some pancakes? She seemed genuinely upset. How about pancakes for breakfast? Can we? It turned out we could, and I dragged my things after her down the hallway. I didn't actually have to drag it. Veronica opened the first door, revealing a small room with a window, 2 made-up twin beds, nightstands, tables, posters on the walls, and something else. It looked surprisingly livable, but I couldn't even look at the furnishings anymore. I was being pulled irresistibly toward sleep. Veronica wished me good night and closed the door behind her. I threw my bag and jacket on one of the beds, fell onto the other, still in my jeans, and instantly passed out. I thought I woke up because my leg was starting to cramp. It hadn't cramped yet, but it was about to. Some kind of tension. Basically, something was wrong with my leg. I noticed that it was light outside the window, meaning it wasn't early morning anymore, and reached for my leg to stretch the muscles with my hands. That's when it all happened. I still can't describe the pain. It was a wave of fire and enormous heaviness that fell upon me, rolling through my entire body. The air was knocked out of my lungs, and I choked on my tongue, trying to scream. I jerked, and it pierced me again. That's the exact word. It was like I was lying under the presser foot of a sewing machine, and a huge needle was stitching me from bottom to top and back again. I froze and whined, biting my hand. I couldn't sit up or stand up. That's understandable. I couldn't even crawl out of bed. My phone remained in my jacket pocket, out of reach. I spent some time screaming for help, to no avail. There was a vase of dried flowers on the nightstand next to the bed. I reached for it and threw it out the window, receiving another jolt of pain. The vase broke. The window didn't. Pain and fear overwhelmed me. I grabbed the top drawer of my nightstand by the handle, ripped it out in one motion, threw it out the window, and screamed. Glass shards rained down, and I felt like I'd been caught on a fishhook and yanked into some kind of boiling water, where I spun in unconsciousness for what seemed like an eternity. The drawer fell at someone's feet, and they rushed into the apartment with the broken window. The front door was thoughtfully wide open. They found me there and called an ambulance. Upon examination, the doctor found no injuries, but he couldn't revive me, and the same people who had called for help loaded me onto a stretcher and lowered me into the ambulance. Only at the hospital, while cutting my jeans open, did the orderly notice that my right leg was noticeably colder than my left. The doctor, after barely feeling my hip, sent me for an X-ray, and from there to the operating table. I imagine a team of doctors, and almost the entire staff was there, who, having cut through the intact skin, saw with their own eyes what the X-ray showed. I had no bone. Under my intact jeans, under my intact skin, the bone, the os femoris, was extracted from its joint capsule and separated from the muscle tendons, after which it simply vanished. The contracted muscles compressed the blood vessels and nerves, which plunged me into this painful hell and made my leg go cold. I was told that there was complete silence in the operating room for almost a minute, until someone yelled, "Camera!" They photographed me, filmed me, cut me further, and filmed me again for 4 whole hours. During this time, doctors from other hospitals arrived, as well as police officers, to whom the head physician tried to explain the impossibility of the incident. Then they almost stitched me up from confusion, because what to do? Blood was flowing through the vessels. From the knee down, the limbs seemed intact. Many people were deciding the fate of my leg. I woke up without it. The first few days I was so scared, so terrified by the whole thing, that I couldn't even think about my leg, and it was a good thing I hadn't seen it like that, boneless. Then the thought occurred to me to ask, where did they put my leg? But the thought made me so sick that my curiosity died at the root. My parents arrived. My father, who a couple of months earlier had called me a weakling, cried in the hallway behind the glass door, holding my hands while he questioned me. First, I was questioned by men in uniform, then by men in civilian clothes who, unlike the police, didn't pay attention to the hospital regulations. My father grilled them about the progress of the investigation, and from the little information they received, it seemed they were at a dead end. We were all at a dead end. There was no such hostel. The address was a residential apartment, consisting of 2 adjoining apartments, whose owners, having urgently returned from a vacation, discovered some furniture missing and a broken window in their son's bedroom. No skeletons, safes, or bookcases. I couldn't remember the website address, of course, and no Kostenitsa was found in the browser history on my laptop. The call from my cell phone went to the phone number of that apartment. The neighbors hadn't seen anyone resembling Veronica, nor had they seen any signs with pseudo-Gothic font. The only fingerprints were mine. I only dared to check what the press was writing about me when I got home, 3 weeks after the amputation. There was nothing. The apartment was up for sale. Dozens of emails from friends poured in. I glanced through them but didn't respond. I was afraid to sleep, so I slept during the day and at night sat in bed, usually lying down with my tablet, listening to music and scrolling through the news. This email arrived around 3 in the morning. Good evening. Unfortunately, we must inform you of an outstanding balance. As a guest of Bone Hotel and having paid for single occupancy in a double room, you used the second bed, placing dirty clothes on it. The cost of using the second bed is 1 bone. Furthermore, you broke a vase and a window. The cost of the vase is 1 bone. The cost of the window is 1 bone. Please press the Select Bone button 3 times to determine your payment method. After 30 seconds, the payment method will be determined automatically. For several seconds, I tried to force a sound through my convulsing throat, but only a hoarse voice came out. Come on! I grabbed my mug of tea and threw it at the wall. The night nurse was supposed to be on duty in the next room, and across the hallway and 2 walls was my parents' bedroom. I threw my cell phone at the wall. I thought I heard footsteps, but the roaring noise in my ears drowned out all other sounds. All I had left was the tablet, and I threw it down, seeing at the last second something glow blue in several places on the detailed image of the skeleton beneath the text. I finally managed to breathe and screamed, but sleep fell upon me like an insane weight. My head slammed into the pillow, and I had no time to figure out if anyone was running to my aid or if anyone could help me.